So before I started my own business, I worked at a major university in Canada. I was there for 10 years doing diversity and inclusivity programming for one of their academic programs.
Okay.
So while I was at the university, I got my graphic design certificate just as part of the professional development program they offered. And I realized I really loved it. And there was an opportunity for me to leave the university and kind of take the skills that I had built and build my own business. And I was able to relocate. So my husband and I relocated to a small, quiet farming community so that he could study to be a winemaker, and having an online business basically was a natural transition for me out of university. So often clients will come and say like, hey, I want a website built, and it's an educational piece on my point saying like, hey, that's great. I love where you're going with the ideas. Let's make sure that what we're building is inclusive and accessible. And so it's walking them through the process of how we can take the concepts and the ideas that they have and make them more inclusive. Sometimes it's like literally a matter of just tweaking a color slightly. It's like, hey, look, now it's more inclusive, and you don't even notice really a difference. But inclusivity auditing is a huge part of what we do. And we do reach out to businesses that we've noticed have inaccessible content, whether, that could be as simple as Instagram too. Including captions on images is really huge. Alt text, that's the alternative text that shows up on a screen reader, things like that. Even just offering transcription, for example, on this video. It's just, there's small steps that people can take, and they often don't require a large financial investment. It's just a time investment and the knowledge. You have to have someone who knows what needs to be done. So. Sure. So legally, I incorporated to make sure everything was good on paper. And then I set up my tech stack. So I did a lot of research into what kinds of things I would need to run an online business. So that's everything from project management software to accounting software to messaging apps that I use with my contractors. I had a legal consultant help me devise some contracts that I use with clients and with my contractors as well. So my team is entirely remote. We work all over the world. I have people who work here with me in Canada, people who work with me in England. It's great. And I wanted to make sure that everything would be legal before I started. Right. And from there, it was a matter of, setting up a website, trying to do some local networking. I was very fortunate in that when I left the university, I had a number of contacts already. So I started working with them first, and once we moved out here to our small farming community, I started contacting local businesses. Sure, definitely look at your local legal resources. Look at what it takes to set up a legal enterprise wherever you are. Sometimes it's more difficult than you would think. Sometimes it's easier than you would think. But definitely start there. So, even check out your local chamber of commerce connections, chat with, a nonprofit lawyer or someone who focuses in the creative field. From there, once you kind of realize what's involved in setting up a legal business, I think the best thing is to find a niche, especially within the design world. Niching is pretty important. So figure out what it is that you like to do, what it is that you're good at, and start making connections. Facebook is a great place to do that. Join some groups where you might think your ideal client hangs out, and see if there actually is a need or a desire for the services that you want to offer. Because if you find there isn't, that saves you a lot of legwork. It also allows you to pivot those services in advance of starting the business. Oh, that's a good question. I think the easiest one is the one you're good at. It's the one that you're passionate about. Design is about selling and pitching as much as it is about actually making the content. So I think if you're not genuine with what you're offering, people see right through that. It's definitely something I've learned. So if you're trying to sell something you're not good at or you're not well versed in, it's very obvious to a client for the most part. So I would say start with what you're good at. That's part of niching. And then you can always learn and expand your skill set from there as you kind of determine what your clients are looking for. So, let's say you're really great at illustration, start with illustration. Get a few illustration clients under your belt first, then start asking them, if I were to offer other services, what are the kinds of things you would be looking for from me? Clients I find are the absolute best resource in terms of expanding what things you want to offer. If you're working online, it really does vary by place. I always say that you should value yourself more than you think you should. A lot of designers, especially when they're young and new, are willing to work for peanuts or nothing at all. And I would say definitely stay away from that. You can't do pro bono work that doesn't pay the bills unless you have, the work to stand behind it. A starting salary, where I'm based in Ontario could be as low as, $20 or $25 an hour. For reference, our minimum wage here in Ontario is $14 an hour. So that gives you an idea of where the starting ratio is. For a more advanced designer, maybe someone who has agency experience, but it now wants to transition to online and is looking to start their own agency. Agency rates range anywhere from probably on the low end, like $85 if you're freelancing, all the way up to like $250 an hour. Website projects, if it's really, really simple, could be $2,000 or $3,000, all the way up to, like tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Especially from the inclusivity piece, because the auditing often takes so long. The projects that we produce are usually for larger organizations. We work with the government of Ontario, and we work with some disability organizations as well. So the starting salary really ranges. I would say the most important thing to think about actually when you're talking about salary is the starting salary in relation to the minimum wage where you are. I wouldn't be working for minimum wage. I wouldn't advise that. Designers are skilled. They have a skill. It's marketable. It's it's desirable. So definitely don't undervalue yourself. And if you're looking to get clients initially and are really struggling, people will always ask you to work for free and for exposure. And my recommendation is always to barter. So barter is a great way to gain experience, gain those portfolio pieces that really matter, but also ensure that you're actually being compensated in some way, even if that's not, financially. So barter service for service.